Hello and welcome to the Infinite Love Podcast, a place where we share stories on how love can transform negative emotions and pain into strength. We talk about all things related to love, positivity, and kindness. And I am your host, Corinne Camara. Hello and welcome to episode 29, From Anxiety to Joy. Today we're speaking with Erin, owner of Erin Mac LLC, a coaching and education company. She's a thought leader, an in-demand speaker, and an international teacher that helps people create immense joy so they can have a calm, peace of mind, and meaning in their life. Now, Erin has had an anxiety disorder that had her held up in her house for nearly a year. Through that experience, she learned how and why that happened and developed strategies to overcoming and preventing it, which she now teaches. Erin vowed that when she found solutions to overcoming and preventing anxiety, she would do whatever she could to make sure that no one has that experience. So that has been her mission. Erin spent a decade studying the mind-body connection, visualizations, and ways to still the mind. Over the decade, she has created simple strategies to overcoming and preventing anxiety, worry, and overwhelm so that all her clients live a life intentionally in joy. I'm so excited about this episode with Erin. She shares life-changing golden nuggets on how to overcome anxiety and bring more joy into your life. Now let's get into today's episode. Hi, welcome to the Infinite Love Podcast. And today we are talking to Erin. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Erin.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I love to start out the show with talking about what your love lesson is. What's the story of who you are and what you've gone through for you to become the person that you are today?
It's a little long, so I'll try to shorten it so that we don't take up all the time. But it's sort of started with an anxiety disorder that I created out of talk therapy that I was actually going to as couples counseling. So we went, my ex-boyfriend and I had decided that we couldn't figure out why we were having such a hard time being together. So we thought we'd get some professional help. And in our first session together, I had a panic attack in the meeting. And I had never had one before, so I didn't know what it was. And the counselor picked up on it right away. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, you're having a panic attack." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that is." So she explained it all and how, we're onions and layered and all that sort of thing. And asked if I wanted to do some individual counseling too, because obviously something was coming up and did I want to investigate that? And I agreed. And through that process, what ended up happening was that my life became narrower and narrower to the point where I hold myself up in my home for nearly a year because I started having panic attacks all the time. First, it was every once in a while, and then it was, when I was running. So then I stopped running, and then started having them a lot while I was teaching. I used to teach special ed high school kids, and I was so afraid I was going to have a panic attack and pass out in front of my kids, and I just couldn't do that. So then I stopped working, and then it just got narrower and narrower. And then there was less and less things I was willing to leave the house for. And then I was basically trapped in my house by my anxiety. And after about, 8 months of all of that going on, my counselor referred me to a homeopathic psychiatrist. And she was able to give me a remedy that after a 3-hour interview, 20 minutes later, I walked out of her office with nearly no anxiety. And I thought, wow, now I got to have a life, because I had thought all those months that, this may be my life. I may not be able to have kids and do all the things I wanted to do and I realized that I could start dreaming again and that I could have a life. And so I decided, because of that experience, that I was going to have a simpler life. So I chose to move to Hawaii thinking, oh, it's a simpler life there. Unfortunately, I was still there. So there was that part. And while I'll say that, first of all, I have nothing against talk therapy as long as it's, managed in a way that the person who's doing it understands how the brain works, and that, pulling up trauma over and over again is an experience that your body's having every single time you talk about it. And that's how that rolled into an anxiety disorder. And secondly, I'll say that while I got the chemistry part figured out through the psychiatrist, the mental part, which was the next decade of my life trying to figure out like why I was creating stress, anxiety, overwhelm, worry all the time, that was the longer process than just going to a counselor and such. And so I moved to Hawaii thinking I'd have a simpler life, immediately started a business that took off gangbusters. And about 10 years into that business, I had a little awakening. A client called and was upset. And so I said, "Oh, I'll be right over to fix it." And I was so manic about, defending my integrity that I raced over to my friend's house to drop my daughter off. And I backed into her raced into her driveway, backed in and sideswiped my car and her husband's truck. And like totaled the whole side of my car. And his truck was fine. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I got to go." So I left, I came back. And when I got back, my friend said, "I need to talk to you about something. My husband was under his truck when you hit it, and he thought it was going to land on him." And it just startled me to the point where I was like, wow, like this is my life. Like I'm so beholden to these circumstances, my clients, my staff, other people. And I just didn't want to live like that anymore. So I began the work of, going to seminars, starting to read self-development books on like every subject. And I started to realize there was more to this life than this ever increasing need to make more money, be more successful, have more things. So I began that journey, and I thought I really was doing well. And then I found myself in another divorce. And through that process, it leveled me. And all that, years of seminars and self-help books, I literally had no strategies. I was like, I know there's a different life out here. I want to have that life. I just don't know how to get it. So I had this crazy thing happen. I started reading this book called A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you've heard of it
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
And I couldn't tell you what it's about, but I'll tell you what my experience was. So it's 365 passages. It's meant to be done one passage per day for a year. And I started out and I was literally just like, I don't get it. I'm not into it. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll just keep doing it. Month one, that was my experience. Month two, I started reading the book, and all of a sudden these words start popping up off the page. Same words. Joy. The answer is joy. The path is joy. And I was like, whoa, like this is weird. And every morning, open up the passage, new passage, joy popping out. And I was finally, after a month, I was like, okay, I get it. I got the message, but how do I get to joy? And as it turns out, I had met this gentleman through the seminar company that I was heavily involved with. And he was having a seminar, and I didn't even look at what it was about. It didn't matter. I knew it was going to be positive. So I signed up for it and I went. And it turned out it was a day-long seminar on the visualization process that he teaches. And I was so inspired by it that I came home and I started using it. And I called up my broker who had had my business for sale for about 9 months and was talking to me about changing the price because there was no interest. I just called him up and I said, "Hey, listen, I just want to let you know, my business is going to go into a bidding war. By the end of the month, it'll be sold." And he was like, "What?" "Well, we don't like to think." And I was like, "Oh no, that's happening." And then I met the love of my life just in these random circumstances. And then I got another email from the gentleman that I took the seminar from, asking if I wanted to train to teach the seminar that he teaches. So I went and trained. And I came back and I put on my first seminar, and within 5 minutes of standing in front of the first group of people I was teaching, everything like culminated at that moment. Like every experience, everything I'd ever read, every seminar I'd ever attended I ditched my notes and I just ran with this seminar. And I went, wow, like this is my purpose. I'm supposed to show people how to find their joy, cultivate it daily, and live the life they've always wanted.
That was, I feel like your story pretty much summarized the podcast because essentially, like essentially that's what the purpose of this podcast is to show people that all the pain that they've gone through in their life has a higher purpose.
Hmm.
And your story totally demonstrates that. Like your anxiety and all the pain and all the struggles and all the things that was happening for you. It wasn't happening to you, it was happening for you. And you were able to then take all of those experiences and then turn them into something positive, and that now you're helping other people find joy in their life. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% believe that we are here for spiritual growth. You
Mm.
can call it self-development, you can call it all kinds of things, but the reality is these challenges that are in your life are on purpose. The universe is exquisite in its design. It is showing you where growth is to happen. It's not about suffering. That's not really the thing. It's really using your emotions to signal where the growth can take place and then allowing yourself to be in that growth period versus trying to force it to be something else.
Hmm. Yeah, and even in within the struggle, like the suffering, there's also the silver lining in those moments as well. There are also the moments of there these are opportunities for us to look at different aspects of our personality, different aspects of where we can grow and where we can move forward. And I think most people find it challenging and difficult because when we are in those dark moments, you totally feel alone and you feel like nobody can understand or help you, which is why it's so important to have that support around you or your connection to the divine, God, or having something that can anchor you to know that there is a light at the end of this experience. It's not going to stay dark and heavy. And I think that's the message too, just also to infuse that joy and love in those moments where you feel totally helpless and alone.
Yeah, and it's interesting, with I have a kiddo. She's, as I mentioned before, she's in middle school, and I've been teaching, of course, because we're all stuck at home. Um, but I'm learning a lot. I learned about some things in science that just blew my mind. Right, that energy never can be destroyed. So if that's true, a lot of people when they have family members pass or friends pass, they still like, oh, I feel their energy or whatever those things are. Like that energy still exists and we can tap into that. So
Yeah.
we know that we're not alone because it's not destroyed, can't get destroyed. Science says you cannot destroy energy. So that energy of, especially the ones that you connected with and you love, they're there and they're serving you. Just tap into that and know you're not alone because there's just there's so much, and nature too. I think nature is so huge. It's just, when you're feeling lonely or you're feeling like alone in whatever the process you're going through is, I never leave walking in nature going, gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. That was a waste of time.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm always like I feel like I have the opposite reaction. I'm like, why don't I do this more?
Yeah.
Like why don't I make enough time to be in nature or X, Y, and Z?
Well,
Like,
that's my hugest talking point these days. So we have 24 hours in a day, right? 8 of it, hopefully, we spend sleeping or around 8, right? That only leaves 16 left, right? So it's like 8 of it's supposed to be working. And then the other 8, you're supposed to cram the rest of your life into those 8 hours. I think that's wrong. I think it needs to be more balanced than that. I think that if we can get intentional about work in a way that not only is fulfilling us, has meaning and purpose for us, and also, we're helping, serving others, which is a huge human need. And we're, intentional about our focus. We can do the same amount of work in less time and then spread the rest of our lives, which is like spending time with people we love and doing activities that bring us joy, like hiking and being out in nature, or I like to play tennis, those sorts of things. Like, I think we can balance it better. I think this idea of 8 hours of working is sort of archaic, and it doesn't make sense as a holistic human, trying to be its potential.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to create that space within you. And I also feel like we are blessed because we have found our joy through our work, and our work is pretty much our mission. And we, I can speak for myself. I totally love what I do, and I could do this all day every day, and it doesn't feel like work at all. It only feels like work when I have to do admin and things along those lines.
Right.
Bookkeeping. Right, but
Yeah.
if I had an assistant doing all the admin work, I literally wouldn't feel like I was working. I'd be like, this is like I'm just talking to people and sharing, and I get paid for it, and it's such
100%.
a
Yeah.
blessing. But then it's the
I
people
agree.
that
Yeah.
don't like what they do. They have anxiety when they go to work. They feel unfulfilled, and I feel like that's a difficult place to be, like doing something that you just are like, I'm just going to work, I'm meaningless, I'm just one of the many people in this corporation. My presence doesn't matter. That's challenging to find a way to bring joy and into those moments. Do you work with clients that like how do you work with clients to infuse joy in situations that are in most cases can't change? They have to do this because they have to support their family, or they're in a situation that isn't changeable in that moment, but they can infuse joy in it. And how do you share those pieces of information to your clients or the people you work with?
Well, first, I like to explain that, the difference between happiness and joy, which is happiness is based on an external event. So it's like, oh, I got a new car. I'm happy about that. But it's fleeting, right? So the new car smell lasts for, month, whatever, couple of months. And then it's just a car, right? And so that's the happiness experience that a lot of people, if you ask most people, they'd say, what do you want? They'd say, oh, I want to be happy. And it's like, well, happiness is based on something outside of ourselves. Joy is based on an internal experience. And so that internal experience is getting to the place where you think that the car is going to bring you, right? So we only want the things because we think how we're going to feel when we have them. Like, I'm going to feel really good when I have that Tesla. I'm going to feel really good when I have that house. I feel really good when I have that relationship. I want you to feel really good now, regardless of what it looks like. And that's what joy is. It's being able to create an internal experience that is unpenetrable by anybody or anything. It's you being solid and neutral and grounded in you and aligned in who you are and what you're doing, um, all the time. And how I get to teaching people about, well, I'll tell you where I found my joy. I found my joy through that visualization process, because what I teach clients to do is I want you to write out, and all your listeners, write out a day in the life of everything you ever wanted. Like every detail, include all the senses: smell, sight, taste, touch, whatever the last one is, hearing, and included in there for the purpose of getting to that higher emotional experience while you are visualizing in quiet for about 5 minutes a day. And you are in the picture, you're not the camera. So you going through from moment of waking up to like, oh my gosh, so grateful, I had a full night's sleep, so excited by my life, all the things are amazing, right? And I literally, when I'm doing my visualization, I'm like raising my arms. I'm like, yes, that's happening. And then that's happening. And right. Because if it's a day in the life of everything you ever wanted, that's pretty exciting. And what a great place to start your day. And so I start there, because when we imagine what it is that we want, then we get into that space of the higher vibrational emotions, right? Love and gratitude. And that's where receivership comes as well. But even before that, it's just like, oh my gosh, like I can be in that place where everything I ever wanted, including deep, meaningful relationships, all the things. And so you start there with your day. And then I teach other strategies on how to cultivate that so that, say, something doesn't go the way you'd like it, then you use a different strategy and or a different perception about the event.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
I also teach my clients to do something similar, and I add to that by infusing that love energy, because the love being the highest frequency, really can tap into something for yourself, but also for others, like bringing that energy up and out and having that be the compass in which you lead your life and lead whatever you're manifesting to come to you, because you're putting out all this love and gratitude and compassion that comes along with being in the state of love, not just being in love, but being the state of in loveness with yourself and with life, and creating that for yourself, which it sounds beautiful, but takes a certain level of working commitment to yourself and to what love looks like for you. I think everyone has a different way of thinking about love, but yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I agree. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think that and I like that you said not in love, right? Because in love is kind of that's really more of a chemical reaction than it is
Right.
a being of love, right? I have this saying on my refrigerator, um, you know, may all beings be loved, and may I show all the love that I have, and because that's why we're here and that's what we're meant to do. And that really is why we're here. We've sort of lost track of it a little bit, but people like you and I that are doing this kind of work,
Mm.
we're here to remind you. And if somebody's listening to this podcast, they're obviously here to hear that,
Right.
because that's obviously the message here.
It's interesting because I totally 100% agree with you that we are here to love and to be beings of love, but then everything in our life brings us away from that. Like, I had an abusive childhood. I had all these things happen to me, and it brought me so far away from love that I had to really crawl myself back to that state of love, and to understand that all those things were happening to me to deepen my love. Because I also, if you haven't gone through much, not if you, I mean, everyone has gone through something, and it's that emotional depth that you have when you go through something, like the fact that you had all this anxiety. Now when you meet someone with anxiety disorder, your compassion is a million times fold more compassionate than it would be for someone like me that hasn't had, I've had anxiety but hasn't been I mean, I'm more of the depressive type. So
Mm-hmm.
depression I get, anxiety a little bit. So you know what I mean? I feel like whatever you've gone through, there are people in the world that need what you've gone through. There's billions of people in the world. So we all have our tribe of people that will resonate with whatever we have gone through and overcome, to help those people that need that support. And and everyone has a different story of what they've gone through, and there's going to be somebody that's going to need that medicine that only you have, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that, talking about, being entrepreneurs and that sort of thing, sometimes in the marketing, we get caught up in this, like, oh, I want to serve more people. But I realize, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and my other businesses were very different. Some of them were product based, some of them were service based, but they were more, obvious. Like, I need I was a house cleaning and property management business. So I either need something cleaned or I don't. And I either need, somebody to help my property or I don't, right? Coaching is significantly different in that until you really get a handle on who you're servicing, like your avatar or whatever you want to call it, the messaging can get so kind of convoluted, right? It can sound the same as everybody else's, and then when you get to talking to people, you realize, oh, their experience is this and my experience is separate. And like you said, there is no oftentimes marketing will have you think, oh, you want to go after the masses, but the reality is you don't. You're only going to attract, like, only some people will be attracted to this podcast, to working with you, to working
Right.
with me, because of the words that we use, our beingness, and, obviously we don't want 100% of the market share because that would be too crazy, right? We just need our people that can hear from us. And that's one of the things, that gentleman I trained under, I just thought it was so fascinating because he trained a bunch of us and he was non-proprietary. He was just like, this is not the kind of thing that I need to corner the market on, because you go out and reach the people that you can reach,
Mhm.
because I can't reach those people, and that's the truth. It's like, who can you reach? Sometimes, other people aren't called like we are to help people in this capacity, but, they're just called to, be a strong family member that people come to and,
Mhm.
feel good around or whatever. And that's a calling too. And so, getting back to that thing about like, how do you create joy? Like, because it's an internal experience that you create, it can be created in any situation. I mean, like literally, like people who, I mean, I think about people like Nelson Mandela, or, people that have been in jail for long periods of time, that were, accused incorrectly. Um, I've heard of stories, where they've, just like a simple one, this guy, like, in his mind played golf over and over again, like every hole of the club that he always played at. And when he got out, he shot like this incredible golf score after decade or more being in jail. And that's how powerful the mind is. Like, you can go to other places, and I recommend that you do. Because as you said, there's a whole lot of resistance here to this line of thinking, right? To this, coming into love, coming into gratitude, living our best life, having work life balance, all those things. Tons of resistance to this, norm that we've sort of bought into, and that I'm hoping to help people recognize is not a good fit for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think mostly, which I can relate to, is that most of us get stuck in our pain and our past hurts, and that becomes the story of our lives. Because it's like, how could I think about something positively happening to me when all this negativity has happened? And the mind is so tricky because the mind is like a total vault of all the things bad that has happened to you. So one
Right.
guy, like for instance, if a guy doesn't text me back, I'm trying to date, he doesn't text me back, all of a sudden my mind is going to tell me every single man that's ever rejected me. And and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm done. I'm done dating forever because I have all this backstory to affirm this negative belief. And it takes so much willpower to then see this opportunity as like, okay, nope, he didn't text me back. That is God protecting me. This person wasn't meant for me. And then we move on to something else. But that switch in your mindset of looking at the positive in a negative situation, that I feel like that's where the work is. Because you really have to retrain your mind because we are brought up. Essentially, I feel like we're brought up to be pretty negative. We see negative news. It's affirming all the time the negativity, negativity. And I know my family was pretty negative. The glass was always empty. Like there was not a lot of positive reinforcement. So it took me many, many years to start to see the glass as half full. And I had to constantly make that choice. Like, I want to live in joy. I want to live in positivity. So if this negative thing happened, how could I see the positive? And I had to start switching, playing with my mind. And I still do. Like till something bad will happen, and I'd be like, okay, where's the positivity in this moment? Like it's constant work because if not, I mean, I'm a total depresso, so I can go down the rabbit hole of poor me victimhood. And so I always have to make that conscious choice. Nope, not going down that hole. Nope, nope, I'm going to stay positive. Nope, I'm going to stay in love. So it's like it's a choice. It's really a choice that you have to be committed to and you have to work on every moment of every day when you're feeling these negativity, these negative things are happening. You always have to be vigilant.
Yeah, it is. So I always say change happens, in three steps. One is awareness, right? And that's often not hard because you're usually in crisis, right? You're like, oh, this sucks. I never want to do this again. Or I'm sick of it. Um, But then there's the deeper awareness where we begin to listen to our brain and hear what's the dialogue that's going on in there. The second piece is, creating strategies around how do I, like you were talking about, switch to the positive when I'm going down the rabbit hole of whatever that is for you. And using things that work and help, and being vigilant about it. And the third, speaking of vigilance, is the practice of the new way of being. And that is the hardest part, right? You think the awareness is hard, but once you start to get aware of yourself and what's happening in your brain, that becomes easier and easier. It's the practicing of the new way, because we've been practicing this other way for so long. It's just ingrained. And there's a whole, it's that mind body thing going on, right? It's like, I'm going to think these thoughts and I'm going to release these chemicals. Those chemicals are going to support that thought, and you can literally change a thought and change the chemistry like that. I mean, like instantaneously. But it requires the vigilance but I'll tell you and your audience that if you stay on that path and you keep practicing the new way, it becomes the norm.
Right.
But it takes time. You can't go to the gym and work out one time and all of a sudden you're buff. You got to put in the work. And that, for me, the work is recognizing that things like emotions are leading to beliefs, right? Those are beliefs that are being poked. And when they're being poked, that's how we're seeing this world. That's our lens or the filter that we've created based on past experiences. And knowing that my filter and lens is different than yours because I had different experiences that led to my filters. And so knowing that, we can all give each other a wide berth and recognize that, when that person looks like they're in pain and or acting out or being some way that you're not interested in, that's them having their beliefs poked. And I don't have to be involved in that any longer. Right. And so I get to just sit in my own stuff. And every time I have a reaction to somebody or something, I go, oh, okay, it's return to sender. It's like, oh, that person is being rude. Where am I being rude? Oh, that person is being selfish. Where am I being selfish? Right. Not in a judging, blaming way at all, in an empowering way. Right. It's like, oh my gosh, I get to look at me and I can do something about me. I can do nothing about anybody else or circumstances, but I can do something about me and I can change that experience by looking at my emotions and going, oh, that doesn't feel good. Why doesn't it feel good? Let me sit in that for a minute and figure out, where have I felt that before? Where is it located in my body? Is it in my throat? Maybe I don't feel like I have a voice. Maybe it's in my heart. Maybe there's some heartache there. Maybe it's in my gut, my solar plexus. Where does that live? And why is it there? And get so curious about, what are these emotions? Why are they here? What is it trying to tell me? Instead of being the emotion, get separate from it.
Right.
And I was going to say one other thing, prior to doing the visualization with clients, that whole day in the life thing, I always start with clients and I just say, tell me your story. And of course they tell me all the rainbows and sunshine and no, they tell me all all
The
this
bad things.
yucky stuff. Right. And then as soon as they're done, I say, is that it? Is that everything? They say, yeah. And I said, you don't get to tell that story anymore. And the reason that I do that is not to be disrespectful to the family members and the people that were involved. It's because, as you alluded to before, people live in their story and they think they are their story. Right. You are not your story. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. And the reason I know that is because you can recall your story. So who's recalling it? You can recall a thought. So who is that? You can have an emotion and recognize it. So who's that? That's who you actually are. And so when you can create separateness between those things, not telling the story anymore aloud, not telling it in your mind, and not getting into relationship over it, oh yeah, this happened to me when I was, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Right? Getting into relationship over yucky stuff, not so good.
No, I mean, yeah, the sharing of wounds and it's
Yeah, but we do it because we just want to connect. And
yeah.
I ask, you connect on a higher level. You connect in a place of
Love.
who am I really? The deepest essence of me, my soul. Like, you know, really who are you? Not the experiences you had, that's your story. Not the thoughts that you have because of those experiences, still part of your story. Not the emotions, the poked part of the, story, right? It's like, who are you on a deeper level? And get in there and like discover like how lovable and kind and all knowing that you are.
Yeah.
That's the piece.
That's the piece that's amazing that we all have once we're willing to let down our barriers and our blocks and our pain to get to the core of who we are. And I think a lot of people struggle with finding who they are and allowing that light to shine through. And
Mm.
that's the part that I find to be the most challenging. Even, I had a lot years of struggling, just letting go of that, then to allow yourself to shine. I think once people do, and once people are addicted to the positive thinking, then they fly. Then they're just like, phew. And then people are looking at them like, what did you do? And it's like years of training and letting go. And so it's a process, but once you're willing to go on the process, it's a beautiful and magical, and in a lot of ways feels miraculous, like once you're able to break through into that place of standing in your power and shining your light and being positive and being in a state of love and being of service.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, this life is really just a game, right? It's like when we can look at it like, we're literally like these beings, like walking around, projecting all of our stuff on everybody, all of our hurts and whatever.
Yeah.
Like when you start to like step back from that, like it becomes so interesting. Like it's so interesting to me when I meet new people. I just go, like, what is there, and they tell you, like people tell you, like, I don't know if it's just me, but people just tell me all kinds of stuff. And I
Yeah.
just go, wow, I must be holding some really interesting space that people feel comfortable. They can tell me all their stuff.
Hmm.
And then I just see people functioning in the world. Like I go out into the world, which not as much anymore. But when I go to the grocery store or whatever, I just am fascinated by people and what they're exuding, whether it's, I don't even really even see it as positive or negative. It's all positive. It's all really just them projecting their hurts mostly, right? And when you can look at it from that stance, it's like, oh, that person has, such and such issue or whatever,
Yeah.
or they're challenged by, or they have a difficult time communicating with people in a way that's meaningful, or they, and it's like, and so for me, it's just like, wow, all these beautiful beings out there just being individuals and just trying to work it out, it's just, it's awe inspiring, this experience here, I
Yeah,
believe.
it's definitely something. Being Yeah, it's an experience for sure. So let's get into the infinite love questions.
Oh yeah.
So, how do you use love in your work?
Well, I mean, what I'm realizing now, so while I am, facilitating this joy for other people, I'm, facilitating my own joy on a regular basis, right? And that includes, what I think are what I know are the three highest vibrational things, which is love is one, love, gratitude, and joy are the top three. And so I use the love for myself. So I lately my practice has really been like working on a limiting belief about like how lovable am I? And
Hmm.
so when I get into that space, I go, "Oh, okay, actually I am lovable." And when I am about to meet with a client, I get grounded in what I know is my truth, which is that I am a lovable being and I am here to serve. And so that's how I use it with my clients. And I try to, I don't have my experience anymore is not, there's less black and white, right? So there's less like, it's not positive, negative, or right, wrong. Like I'm judgment, non-judgment, like any of that stuff, like just doesn't mean anything anymore to me. And I think that's love, is when you can just allow people to be themselves. and be okay with, them being however they show up.
Yeah, holding that container.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How is your work used to serve humanity?
Well, I've been doing this for 3 years. Um, and, my goal, of course, is to touch as many lives as possible, not because I need the accolades, but because I truly believe that a lot of people don't realize that we are here for spiritual growth. And so my goal has really just been to let as many people know as possible that this is possible, that it's possible to be in joy, it's possible to be in love.
Yeah.
And the more we can spread that idea, the less we have of some of the things that are less, pleasant.
And what does it mean to you to be a positive force of goodness in the world?
I think, it might sound a little cliche, but really, the most change I can enact is on myself. Like, be the change you want to see in the world. That's where the greatest amount of, because we're like the drop of water in the pond, that ripple effect. We don't even know. I mean, that's part of the thing that's kind of um, challenging for a lot of people, I think, is that we don't have a lot of feedback that, how we're being in this world matters to other people. We just don't have those conversations all the time. We can't know that when we, look the grocery clerk in the eye and say, "How are you today?" and mean it, how much that meant to them. Maybe they're going through a hard time or whatever. We just don't know. And so I think it's important to recognize that when we work on ourselves and continue to evolve, that ripples out to not just our immediate families and friends, but like further. I mean,
Yeah,
that's energy.
totally. Yeah, I totally believe that. Like, if you take the responsibility of working on yourself and healing your wounds, it totally affects your whole bloodline, your whole lineage, your family, your future descendants. It just heals
Hmm.
on an entirely on multi-dimensional levels that many of us don't even understand. But it's really important to take that ownership of who you are and making those internal shifts. Absolutely, yeah. So, what do you love most about your life?
Oh gosh, what don't I love? Let's see. um,
Well, that's a
I
good
mean, I
problem.
love that I get to have these kinds of conversations. I mean, it means so much to me. I know I'm here to do this, to tell people this information.
Yeah.
Um, and so I absolutely love that. I love watching my, well, I will love watching my daughter like start to learn some of these, what I think are essential ideas about life, um, and just take that information and use it how she can at 13. And I love that. I love that, that I have, a loving family and friends that I can, just connect with. I mean, I cannot think of a thing in my life at the moment that I don't absolutely love, because I recognize even the things that haven't shown up how I wanted them to, that's me needing them to be a certain way versus just allowing the universe to provide how it will.
Right.
And so I know that, even if I don't have the car that I want right now, I have a wonderful car. I would like this other car, and I'm excited when it comes. And
Yeah.
I'm not any less joyful because it's not here yet. Do you know what I mean?
Right. You're totally surrendered to where you're at. And
Yeah, I call it the isness of being. Like the less the less we butt up against what is, the
yeah.
more we just allow things to unfold, like the better the experience. And what else could there be better than having the best experience?
Right. Right. Enjoying the moments that you have. Like, I am also wanting a new car, but every time I get in my car, I'm super grateful that I have a car because there was years that I didn't
Yeah,
have a car. So the fact that I
yeah,
have a car, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I have a car. I want that car, but I'm happy about this part. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's funny because I think, will I feel any different when I do have that car? I wonder. I might feel a little bit happy for a little while,
Right.
but eventually it will just be a car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
for
it'll be a great car that gets me from A to B,
right,
which is the purpose. So,
right.
yeah.
I think for me, what makes me excited about when I want something material, for me, it's like manifesting it. And then once
Yeah.
it's manifested, I'm like so excited that I manifested it, that I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God, I wanted it and I made it happen. Like, so for me, it gives
Nice.
me that like celebration that I can create my life the way I want to create it. And so every little thing I get that I've wanted, it could be something small. Like I wanted this ring for a long time, and when I finally got it, I was like, "Ooh, I got the ring!" Like just like not that if I lose the ring, it's okay, but I can get a new one. Like this whole idea of
Yeah.
like being in constant creation with the universe is what I get excited
Oh,
about.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
So, how do you feel you receive love?
Gosh, that's interesting. I feel like so I've been doing these really intense meditations lately that are like, do you know I'm sure you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been doing one of his meditations lately, and it's about like dismantling a couple of beliefs. And man, uh he ends it with like, this whole powerful like speech thing about like, I mean, the whole thing is it's like an hour, which to me was like a really huge commitment. I've been meditating for like a half an hour for years, but I like now either you have to set my alarm early to do, an hour meditation, which is kind of a commitment. Um, but man, do I get so much out of it. And it's all, first it's like, relax. Then it's like his whole thing, which is no body and no time, no thing, right? So you're just basically consciousness without the body and the environment, right? And then he goes into the whole belief thing. And then after the belief, the one that you want to get rid of and how you want to see it, then he does this whole like, may you, be one with your soul and the divine, live in you and move through you and move all
Love
around
it.
you.
I love
And,
it.
and I was just like, just even doing that, I just got goosebumps. He's like, put your hand on your heart and just, and it's like, whoa, like that is one way that I receive love. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm healing myself through this process. And what a beautiful thing. Gosh, what else? I feel like I just sort of receive like I've just gotten so narrow in what my life looks like in terms of um really trying to only do things that bring me some sort of joy, like maybe it's tennis, maybe it's a walk in the park, maybe it's, and gosh, I can't tell you, my relationship with nature is like incredible. I mean, I just am in awe of this wondrous earth that is creating all these beautiful things. So I think I receive love. I do like walking meditations and I listen to things that speak to my soul, which I think is very important that we connect with our soul on a very regular basis because that's what helps reduce the resistance to like, I want to be this way. The world feels like it's this way. How do I remain steadfast in my what I know and be aligned in who I am on a regular basis?
Nice. And where has love created a miracle in your life?
Oh gosh, I think in my story it created so many miracles, right? I mean, so many like wake ups like hello, come to the party. You're off doing a bunch of other things that have little to no meaning. I think, that experience of, reading the Course in Miracles and having joy pop out of the page and just really like searching and finding people that speak to my soul, like help me to remember that I why I'm here and what's important on a regular basis. Like that's vitally important to me.
Yeah. It keeps us going.
Yeah.
Great. So how can people find you? What's the best way to contact you? Do you work with groups? Do you do individuals?
I think the best way to get me is probably Instagram. It's Erin, Erin Mac LLC. I post a ton of videos with a bunch of content, things to think about, strategies, and my website's on there. I also am doing some classes coming up. So those are a group. And yeah. And, there's my website, of course, but you can get that through my Instagram.
Wonderful. And I'll put all that information in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. This was such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story and how you overcame it, and now the work that you're doing with others. It's really beautiful to know you and to know the work that you're sharing in the world.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having a platform to share these things. It's really important for us to talk about these things because I think these are vitally important to enjoying our life, which I think is why we're here,
Yeah,
as opposed to
agreed.
most people's experience.
Agreed. Well, I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and tune in on Tuesdays for new episodes. For more information about me, please follow me on Instagram at Corinne J. Camara and my website, CorinneCamara.com. Sending you lots of infinite love.